Hello, dear friends and comrades. Let me first of all thank the World Peace Council and the Belgrade Forum for the World of Equals for organizing and inviting the World Federation of Trade Unions to this very important conference on the occasion of the 15 years of the NATO aggression against the peoples of Yugoslavia in 1999 that paved the way for later imperialist aggressions like those in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Mali, and the threats today against Syria. The imperialist aggression against Yugoslavia in 1999 and its detrimental impact on the peoples in the region and the world peace is a crime that should neither be forgiven nor forgotten. Let me start with an assessment expressed at our last World Council of the WFTU held in Rome last month. The capitalist financial crisis that hit all developed capitalist countries has dramatically worsened the situation for the working class in all aspects of their lives. In all continents and regions, the policies aiming to a so-called exit from the crisis elaborated by capitalist governments, no matter the name, the party, or the composition, all those recipes elaborated by governments, international imperialist organizations, have as main prerequisite very low wages and salaries, less workers and union rights, more state and employer-sponsored oppression and terrorism. On the international arena, as the global capitalism is getting deeper into the capitalist crisis and facing its own contradiction, the competition of life and death of the large monopoly groups, between the large monopoly groups, is intensifying. This means that imperialist aggressiveness aiming at the exploitation of natural and economic resources and energy transfer routes becomes more ruthless. This means new wars and imperialist aggression against the peoples. The imperialists always try to fool the peoples, hiding their real goals under the hypocritical covers of lies, misinformation, media manipulation, numerous appeals for freedom or democracy or justice or the fight against terrorism. Those pretexts are total jokes. The NATO and the EU countries bombed Libya and now they threaten Syria under the pretext of democracy, while at the same time, the US and its allies have excellent relations with the oppressive regimes of the Gulf monarchies, while they try to destabilize democratically elected governments, like the one in Venezuela, while they're supporting coup d'etat, like in the case of Honduras, even creating alliances with Nazi and fascist forces, like in the recent case of the Ukraine. The US and the NATO led the war against terrorism, the so-called war against terrorism, while they're still keeping in prison Cuban patriots for fighting against terrorism. Here, in your country, the imperialist aggression led to the dismemberment of Yugoslavia, the illegal succession of Kosovo in the name of freedom. At the same time, in Palestine, the USA, with their unbridled support for Israel, which occupies most of the Palestinian territory, deprive our Palestinian brothers and sisters of their freedom and independence, of the right to be a sovereign nation, a fact that has cost thousands of lives to the Palestinian people, with the consequent destruction of almost all the national territory. International law in these cases is flexible and relevant. Today, international law is formed, interpreted, and applied according to the needs of the powerful, according to the plans and alliances of the imperialists and the international monopolies. UN resolutions or international conventions or international law have no meaning where they are not convenient for the plans of the imperialists. Their violation has no consequences. For example, the United Nations has voted various and repeated resolutions on Palestine, on Cyprus, for the end of the criminal US blockade against the people of Cuba. But up to today, the imperialist tactics and attitude has not changed. Imperialist wars and imperialist aggression of any kind and interventions are always against the workers and the peoples. They generate suffering for them. Millions of people are fleeing as immigrants and thousands get killed, among them children and non-combatant civilians. So the workers have no common interests with the imperialists or the bourgeoisie of their own countries. They have nothing to gain from their wars and rivalries. The WFTU takes sides, and it takes the side of the workers and the simple people in every country. The World Federation of Trade Unions is a class-oriented, anti-imperialist, internationalist organization which fights for the interests of the working class, for peace and friendship, not between social classes, but among the workers and peoples of the world, against imperialist wars. We strongly defend the right of every people to decide for themselves on their present and future. In this framework, the WFTU, along with its affiliates in the 5 continents, representing more than 86 million unionized workers, organize various activities, protests, conferences, international campaigns to raise awareness within the workers and trade union movement and express our solidarity with the people who suffer because of imperialism and against imperialist interventions. These events are spread all over the world, in America, Asia, Africa, even in Europe, where our forces are still limited. The WFTU has always expressed its solidarity with the peoples that were affected by imperialism, denouncing the imperialist wars in Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Mali, Central African Republic, denouncing the imperialist intervention in Venezuela, supporting the Palestinian people in its cause for an independent country, supporting Cuba against imperialist aggression caused by the criminal US blockade against the Cuban people, and for the liberation of the 5 Cuban patriots. While on the same time, unfortunately, other so-called workers' representatives, like the International Trade Union Confederation, the ITUC, have expressed their support, like in the case of Mali and Libya, to imperialist interventions, siding with the imperialist arguments for democracy, so-called democracy, and so-called international law. Dear friends, there's no reason why the workers and our peoples should live in poverty, experience imperialist wars, destruction, torment, capitalist exploitation, lack of proper public health care and education. The WFTU calls for the unity of the workers of the world for their own class interests, their alliance with the poor farmers, the self-employed, the women, the youth, and their fight for social justice against imperialism and war, and against the causes that generate these wars and the suffering of the peoples. Because the workers, the working class, has to be in the first line of the struggle for peace in the world. There won't be a lasting and socially just peace without the overturning of the last exploitation system in the world, without the overturning of the capitalist system, if we don't fight for the end of exploitation of man by man. Thank you very, very much.